Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again, and the 10-day Mayhem event has just begun yesterday, and if you'd remember from the past few events, I've been playing hardcore. Now that includes both the last Turmoil events and the last Mayhem event, and I did play solo self-found hardcore for all of those, and the reason behind that is simply because it seemed to fit a bit more with the races, just the way that they drop a lot more loot, there's a lot more insanity going on, and so it kind of made sense to go the solo self-found route just to have it a bit more interesting, but most importantly it's so that I could actually compete on the ladders, or at least have a attempt at competing, because against the groups I just straight up do not stand a chance these days with all the aura bots and the pooling of currency and all of that. There's just no chance whatsoever, so I had to play solo self-found, and only hardcore was available for that option, so we did that, and that was an attempt at doing some sort of competition. Now this time around for this Mayhem race I did go softcore, and that is strictly because last time I played Mayhem it just did feel a little I had a bit of regret about not playing the softcore version because it's just so crazy. There is so much fun shit going on with Mayhem. There's 20 invasion bosses, there's 20 ghosts that quite often just give you something completely ridiculous to fight. There's shitloads of breaches, 10 of them in a certain map, and combine that with some Beyond or some crazy map mods and it gets pretty damn hectic. And then there's 20 exiles, 20 strongboxes. So overall, you do just feel like you're missing out on a bit of the fun as hardcore on this race, because quite often you will turn away from a certain challenge or event and think, I shouldn't do that, it's better to stay alive, and walk away. And that has definitely been the case with the last Mayhem race for 20 ghosts. Quite often I would come across a monster that had quite a lot of ghosts, or had the potential to get a lot of ghosts, and I'd shy away from that fun because I knew it was a terrible idea. Well, not this time. I definitely went all in on this one and tried to see what kind of ghostings we could get and try and take on this content just to feel the mighty wrath of the ghost dick in my face, which is how we ended up coming across this absolute god. So someone from my chat decided to let me know that they've got a ghost that's basically unkillable, and or a Tora den with a monster that is ghosted something like 15 times, and it's been just the worst experience ever. So I decided to jump in there and have a go, because softcore allows you the freedom to do that. Now this thing was the single most insane monster I've ever faced. I could not do anything for the most part against this guy basically ever. Bear in mind though, my character isn't all that strong at the moment. He's like level 79, maybe 80, and you know, not really very good gear at all. But I was taking on the content for my level absolutely fine and doing pretty damn well for single target and all that. But this guy just could not stay alive against to save our lives whatsoever. Eventually it did kill him with something like 15-20 deaths, and dropped a mountain of rares that you can't even see on the screen. There are far too many, and that's just basically the fun experience of being able to do this on softcore, to challenge yourself into these sorts of little events and be able to see what your character can get away with, see if you can actually take on stuff that you're not actually supposed to be able to take on. And so all that's really left to do is tell you what character I'm playing here, and it is somewhat obviously a Gladiator Blade Flurry, sword based. Currently I am crit swords, and the reason I'm making this character or choosing this character is because gladiators and just physical sort of stuff with the bleed explosions are a really solid choice as a first character in this sort of event and new league and all that. And I really enjoyed playing the Sunder character, but I have played Sunder a few times in the past few weeks now and wanted to mix it up a bit, so I went with swords and still gladiator for the bleed explosions, but I wanted to do either Reeve or Blade Flurry. Now Reeve does have some problems right now, and it is kind of shit just because its area doesn't feel good, having to keep up the stacks doesn't feel good compared to your Blade Flurry, and then Blade Flurry doesn't feel that great either because its area is also a little low, and you do have to rely heavily on the bleed explosions. That said, it's been performing pretty well and it's been clearing fairly well. I just need a bit more attack speed, maybe a bit better gear and all that to actually take it to a very nice level like my Sunder Gladiator was. However, I am still having fun here. I will probably try and convert this to non-crit just to get a lot more speed, because I don't think damage will ever really be an issue. I'll just go over what the character looks like real quick for you guys if you wanted to try something somewhat similar. So here I am on the Duelist Gladiator, currently level 80, Deadthil the Undying, because of course I cannot truly die in this race. Took us, I don't know what, 14 hours to get this far in pretty much solo self-finding. I have bought like 1 or 2 little items so far, but for the most part my gear is fairly modest, and I will give you a link to that if you really want. But yeah, it's been okay, and currently running a Skaver as my main hand for Blade Flurry and Reeve, mostly Blade Flurry, and it's just a little bit slow, but it does have really good damage, so I don't really enjoy playing it because of the slowness of my Blade Flurry and the Whirling Blades, which is why I want something a bit quicker, or until I actually truly ramp up the rest of my tree to actually get all of my attack speed. So I do probably recommend going non-crit, because I think it'll still get you enough damage, and I'll have a passive tree for you guys made up for non-crit if you want to try out the Blade Flurry or the Reeve with a sword action. And I'll also give you the crit one too, but I'm not sure it's truly worth it unless you have the right gear, because ultimately you won't need the damage until tier 16 of crit regardless, so this should be fine and just a bit easier to build and probably a bit smoother to play for, you know, this type of race. But one thing, if you really want to know real quick, the microtransactions on this character is Demon King chest, Subjugator everything else, a Colossus sword, and a Subjugator weapon effect, and running Purple Herald of Ash of course as well. So besides that, there's not really too much I need to mention. Blade Flurry only attacks with the main hand if you have something in the offhand that cannot be used, thus an axe, and we're using Relentless Fury here at the moment for our offhand. You can purely dual wield with 2 Skavers, for example, even, and that's fine. That will alternate damage with the Blade Flurry, and that does work out pretty well, but I might end up offhanding my Skaver while running a main hand something non-crit sword base and have this in the offhand just for the extra bit of block, and it still does some good damage as well. Hopefully that increased my attack speed drastically though with a really fast sort of sword which I want to try and craft. Now currently we have Blade Flurry, Chance to Bleed, Melee Fizz, Crit Strikes and Ruthless in the sockets, and the only thing I really need to mention is Ruthless here. It does give you 109% at this stage for the full duration of your channel every 3 channels. So if you start out with 1 channel, you don't get proc Ruthless, you can quickly get to the next one, or one eventually that is Ruthless, and then this will be a full Ruthless channel. So 1 in every 3 channels will be Ruthless, and that does mean you can get a lot of damage out of your Blade Flurry that way by trying to cycle the correct one. And that's certainly a strategy you can employ against harder bosses and all that. Otherwise, I'm not really too sure about all the intricacies of the character. I can't give you the definitive links and all that. Currently running Herald of Ash and Assassin's Mark Blasphemy. I'm not usually running Hatred because shattering things and hatred kind of does not coincide well with your bleed explosions. If you shatter things, the enemy's corpses, they don't really explode, and it doesn't really do well for your gladiator explosion shit. So I don't run hatred very often at the moment since I am crit based, and that means I'm just running a Herald of Ash and a Blasphemy for the most part. Got a War Chief Totem as well, it helps out with damage just a little bit. He's not too insane because he does dual wield and alternate with this piece of shit, so that's not the greatest damage. And otherwise, for the most part, we're pretty solo self-found, finding whatever we can, just life and some damage and all of that. And yeah, hopefully there'll be some more updates in the next few days if the character ends up being really nice, and I'll share that with you. But so far, Gladiator, some sort of melee physical ability, probably Sunder, and in these races goes really well. If you just want a character to get up to level 35 to get the mystery box, let's say, or just to a certain level like 90 just to get as many of the microtransaction tickets as possible, basically. Gladiator, Sunder, Blade Flurry, that sort of thing. It is really good. It is a really strong start. If you've never tried it, I do recommend it. So that's it for this video, though, guys. I am on softcore Mayhem. It has been a lot of fun. I doubt I'll be terribly competitive because I'm level 80. I've played, what, 14, 15 hours in the past 2 days. These guys are already level 95. There's not a chance, but we're having fun regardless. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, and see you next time.